Welcome to the Burning Issues Festival here at Kampnagel. Hello, Helen Varley Jamieson. I'm very happy to have you here with the network Magdalena. Maybe just to introduce everybody who is maybe not familiar with your network and with the activist work you're doing and artistic work, would you like to introduce your project a little bit?
Okay, thank you, Alina. I'm very happy to be here along with my colleagues who are right now on the stall to present the Magdalena Project and Magdalena München. So the Magdalena Project is an international network of women in contemporary theatre and performance that exists since 1986. And at that time, a group of women who were going to alternative theatre festivals in Europe got together over a bottle of wine one night and said, hey, we're all women actors working with male directors. What would happen if we got together and made our own work and showed our own work? And so they made the first Magdalena Festival in 1986 in Wales, and as a result of that festival, it spread out into the world fairly quickly without very much money and without any marketing plan or anything, but growing through women's need to make this happen and women's need to network. And then as it sort of sprang up in all these different places around the world, every festival that's held somewhere else is quite autonomous, funded autonomously and also organised autonomously so that it can really respond to the local needs that the women there need to do and want to do and are able to do within their own resources. So there have been festivals from Europe to India to Singapore to New Zealand to South America, and in every place it's quite a different experience. Very local, always a combination of local and international, and a program that's chosen according to what the organisers locally want. The things that are the same are that it's not a festival where you go and present your performance and go home. You come for the whole festival and you see everybody else's work and you eat together and you take part in workshops and you really get to know the other people at the festival. So it's really about exchange, and often there will be little outings, so you might get to see part of where you're staying. You get to experience the local culture as well.
And so the curation of these festivals is done by the local members of Magdalena?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you travel then, like in times where we don't have travel restrictions like Corona right now, but do you really travel globally to visit all of these festivals, and how do you make this possible, even financially, for all the members in the different locations?
Yeah, so me personally, I have travelled a lot to a lot of these festivals, and there are some women who tend to stay with the local ones, and there are others who are more able to travel because they don't have children or because they have the resources. And in every festival there will be decisions made about who we can afford to bring. So it might be we really want somebody who's coming from a situation where they have no other possibilities to get money, that we will put a lot of money into bringing them. For example, to Munich we brought Deborah Hunt, who's a puppeteer and mask performer from Puerto Rico. She can't get any funding there. Whereas others in places like Great Britain or North America have more possibilities to get funding. So if often people will be asked, can you apply locally for your travel costs? And often that is something that you can do. So in every situation, it's very different. I've been to a festival in Cuba, and there, if the government says, yes, you can have a festival, then they are also committed to funding it. And so then they can get funding. And I got my airfare from New Zealand, from the Arts Council in New Zealand. So we make it up how we can make it work. But there are always at festivals, there are local women who may have never been to a Magdalena before and may never come to one again, or they may be coming whenever that festival happens locally and maybe not necessarily going wider. They may not be able to travel.
Okay, so I understand that it's also a kind of a structure of solidarity in terms of redistribution of the possibility to travel and the possibility maybe to even get funding for your artistic work. Do you think that right now your work has become even more relevant? Because I guess that during this pandemic we have also seen that the travel restrictions have affected some groups or some locations in the world quite like more heavily than others. And artistic production, for example, right now here in Germany we have quite a lot of funding being put into assuring that solo artists, independent artists can survive this crisis, even if it's not without criticism, how these monies are put out, but there is structures. And in different parts where you are working with Magdalena, this is not even the case. So are you in communication with all the other Magdalenas? Am I saying this right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we have a website and a mailing list, and everyone can join that. So we keep in contact that way. Next Sunday, the 8th, we are beginning a series that is planned to be monthly of online gatherings to talk mainly, and we're working towards an online festival next year. Last weekend, Dark Theatre, which is a theatre group in Belgrade in Serbia, had an online festival that was about the arts and human rights. And they did that with streaming, and they had things happening in Belgrade as well, and they were able to get funding for that. So these kind of things are happening. And speaking from myself personally, I'm a theatre maker and also a digital artist, and I've been working for more than 20 years in what I call cyberformance, which is live online performance. So making a form of theatre that is online, and I've been doing this a lot longer than the pandemic has been around. So this is not a new world for me, but this is really exciting time that something that has been a really niche art form is now becoming, obviously, a much more widely understood form, and obviously that comes then with more funding opportunities and more people wanting that funding. But it's a world that I'm very familiar with, that we can be connected. And coming from New Zealand as well, this has always been a really important thing, that we can reach out across the ether as well as in person, and that we can really make a connection that way.
I was wondering, because you mentioned that this network has been founded in 1986, right? So it's also a kind of an archive, maybe. Because,
absolutely, yeah.
Can you comment on that?
Yes, I can. On the website, we do have an archive that is a chronology of the festivals, and where there are links, you can find out a lot. But also another very important aspect of the Magdalena Project has been publishing women's writing about their work. And on our stall, we've got copies of The Open Page, which is a journal of women's voices in theatre that was published every year for 13 years. And it has articles from women all over the world writing about their work, about their experiences. Some of it is very creative, poetic writing, some of it is quite academic. After 13 years, they stopped making that because they were doing it voluntarily and it was a lot of work. But now, every few years, there's been a special book put out. There was one last year on the theme of risking hope. A few years before that, there was one called Future Conditional, with women writing about the future. There was one for the 25th anniversary, which is quite a thick one, with really a lot of very good articles in that. So this, it's about writing our own history and bringing in a lot of voices that wouldn't be heard or that would just disappear because theatre is so ephemeral. So about making that history.
And have you observed some fundamental changes since '86? I mean, we are now in 2020, so And considering this archive, considering the work on, like the continuous work you have been doing, what has happened? I mean, also politically, but if you want to, also aesthetically.
Yeah, I personally haven't been involved since '86. I've been involved since the mid-90s.
Yeah.
But I definitely do see that there is a change. I mean, if you think of 1986 and the feminist context that there was then, in a lot of respects, actually, things have not changed so much, which is quite sad. But this was a very particular circumstance that these women were in Europe in 1986. They were all white women coming from this particular third theatre tradition in Europe, from Grotowski and Eugenio Barber, and this kind of alternative theatre. And over this time it has opened up enormously, involved a lot of women from very many different cultures and languages. So it's become very intersectional, I guess you could say. And in terms of politics, it has allowed a voice in a lot of different ways. For example, this theatre group from Belgrade, Dark Theatre, that I mentioned, have been part of the network since the early 90s. So throughout this period when this country was at war, they were making theatre and they were bringing it to the Magdalena network. And on the 25th of March 1999, they were in New Zealand at our festival there, and NATO bombed Belgrade, and they had performed the night before, and the next day we all went to the American embassy and were protesting against what was happening. And the next day they were flying home because they were worried about their loved ones. And they had 2 Americans in the group who could not go back with them, so their theatre company really changed from this. And this is something that in the network, because it is a professional network but also a network of personal friendships, this is things that we have lived with this experience and learned from it and supported them in whatever ways we could. 2 of the groups stayed in New Zealand for 3 months because they couldn't go back, and so they were supported by the network there. So in that respect, it's very much this sort of personal as political.
Yeah.
And every time there are things coming in that are happening. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. If your members are all over the world, there's always an urgency somewhere to maybe be talked about or even become active as a network.
In the newsletter we send out every month, we have a piece, an opinion piece from a different person, and last month we had it from Oksana Haiko, who's in Belarus. So she was writing about the living with a bag behind the door in case she gets arrested, and how she's making theatre in this time, how they're dealing with corona and revolution at the same time. Yeah.
What's your vision for the next years to come? What's your wish for theatre? What has to change?
That's hard. I mean, because for me, coming from my cyberforms perspective, there's a lot happening. From Magdalena München perspective, we're starting to talk about what we will do next year. We're a very small group with no real strong infrastructure, so every time we do something, we kind of reinvent what we're doing. So when we go back to Munich, we're going to be talking about asking for more residencies at the Villa Waldberta, which is this amazing artist residency place that we've been able to invite artists to, and to do something next year. We're also planning with the international network an online festival for next year.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's...
Where can we keep up with that?
You can join the email list on the website. You can just follow things on the website, but if you want it in your inbox, you can join the email list. For Magdalena München, we also have an email for Tyler, and we have Facebook. We have Instagram, but nobody ever puts anything on it.
Okay.
But the main things are the email list.
So are you looking for an Insta
Oh, if someone wants
manager.
to do it.
Okay.
I mean, this is actually a really important thing about Magdalena. It's basically, if you want to do it, you get up there and you do it. I made the first website for Magdalena Project in 1999, and I just went to Jill Grenoch's house in Wales, sat at the table for 3 weeks. She cooked food, she poured wine, I made the website, And that was just the way that
yeah.
things happen. If you see something that you want to do, you do it.
And so, speaking to because we're in Germany right now, to the German audience, or maybe people who are watching the video in Germany, are you only based in Munich, or?
No, there's a festival in Frankfurt called the Internationales Frauentheater Festival, and this is also part of the Magdalena network. They are based at Antigon Theater, which is a really good place to be based because they can host people, they can accommodate people there. They've just had their 4th festival and they're doing it every year. So they're a bit more organised, or not organised, but supported than we are in Munich, a bit more structured. So there's that. And in Berlin, there hasn't been a festival, but there are a lot of artists there who are connected to Magdalena. For example, Jana Korb is maybe someone who people know. She's very active in feminist performance things in Germany. She's also a long time involved with Magdalena. And they've had some meetings, just getting together and having coffee and talking. And then there are various individual people around. So there's, yeah.
Cool. So in Hamburg, in Munich, in Frankfurt, and in Berlin, people can get active, join the group, and maybe also in other cities, virtually just get in touch if they want to get involved in a festival. Is that true?
Yes, yes, and they should join the mailing list really, and look on the website to see what is coming up.
Cool.
Yeah.
Super. So if you're interested in Magdalena Project, just go to the website. Can you say the...
Okay, the Magdalena Project website is themagdalenaproject.org.
Okay.
And Magdalena München is Magdalena München, MUNCHEN.de.
Okay, we will put that in the video description as well.
Okay.
Thank you so much for the work you're doing, and I will join you later at your table at the market, and I wish everybody a nice Burning Issues Festival.
Great.
Thank you so much, Helen.
Thank you very much.